In the heart of Charleston, Samuel Carter, a quiet titan of business, walked into his own coastal haven restaurant, expecting warmth but finding a cold refusal. What began as a simple mix-up unraveled a hidden plot to sabotage his legacy, orchestrated by a bitter rival. With the help of a loyal young waiter and a steadfast chef, Samuel turned rejection into revelation, exposing betrayal and reclaiming his dream. How far would you go to protect what you've built? What happens when trust is tested by envy? Stay with us to uncover the truth, and if this story stirs you, hit like, share, and subscribe to Black Echoes for more tales of resilience. The rain fell softly on Charleston's cobblestone streets as Samuel Carter stepped into Coastal Haven, his sanctuary of fine dining. At 60, he carried the weight of a long flight, his gray suit slightly creased, but his eyes sharp with purpose. The golden glow of the chandeliers bathed the elegant dining room, yet the air felt tense. At the hostess stand, Emily Harris glanced up, her smile tight. "I'm sorry, sir. We're fully booked tonight," she said, her tone clipped. Samuel paused, his voice calm but firm. "I'm Samuel Carter. I believe there's a table for me." Emily checked her tablet, shook her head. "No reservation under that name, sir." Whispers rippled through nearby diners. Something wasn't right. Samuel, the man who'd built this place from a dream, sensed a shadow lurking beneath the surface. Instead of revealing his identity, he chose to sit at the bar, watching, waiting, determined to uncover the truth behind this unexpected slight. Samuel Carter settled at the bar of Coastal Haven, the clink of glasses and soft murmur of diners weaving through the air like a familiar melody. The sea breeze slipped through an open window, carrying Charleston's salt and promise. His sharp eyes swept the room, lingering on empty tables that mocked the hostess's claim of a full house. A prickle of unease stirred deep within, a whisper that something was deeply wrong. A young waiter, Eddie Thompson, approached, his apron slightly wrinkled, his brown eyes bright with recognition. "Mr. Carter," he whispered, leaning close, voice barely above the hum of the crowd. "I know you. You funded my scholarship, gave me a chance when no one else did. I'm so sorry about earlier." Samuel nodded, his voice low, steady. "No harm done, son, but those empty tables, why turn folks away when there's room?" Eddie's gaze darted nervously toward the kitchen door. "It's Mr. Wells, the new manager. He's got orders to refuse walk-ins even when we're half empty. Been like that for weeks. Customers are leaving angry." Samuel's jaw tightened, but his face held calm, a mask over the storm brewing inside. Coastal Haven was his father's dream reborn, a place where strangers became kin over shared meals. Now, someone was tearing it apart, thread by thread. "Keep your eyes open, Eddie," he said, his tone soft but firm. "Tell me what you see, what you hear." Eddie nodded, a spark of loyalty igniting in his eyes, a young man ready to stand for something bigger. Samuel sipped his bourbon, its warmth steadying his resolve. The restaurant's heart still beat, but a shadow loomed, threatening to silence it. He'd built this place from nothing, against odds that had broken lesser men. Whoever was behind this would learn he wasn't one to fold. His fingers traced the rim of his glass, his mind already mapping the quiet moves ahead. The truth was out there, waiting, and Samuel Carter would find it, step by measured step. Samuel Carter sat alone at the bar, the Charleston rain tapping softly outside, its rhythm heavy with the weight of the night. The clink of glasses faded as his mind slipped back, pulling him into a memory as sharp as the day it unfolded. Years ago, in a sleek Atlanta office, Samuel signed the papers to claim Coastal Haven. Richard Hensley stood across the desk, his smirk cutting like a blade. "You're out of your depth, Carter," he'd sneered. "Fine dining isn't your world." The words stung, echoing a bitter taunt from a Charleston gala years earlier, when Hensley, a pillar of the elite, had dismissed Samuel's dream of a restaurant for all. "Stay in your lane," he'd scoffed, his voice cold with contempt. Those taunts became Samuel's fuel, forging Coastal Haven from defiance. He'd toiled relentlessly, turning ambition into a beacon of community and quality. In Atlanta, as the ink dried on the contract, Hensley's eyes flashed with wounded pride. "You'll regret this," he'd hissed, storming out. Now, in his own restaurant, Samuel felt the shadow of that rivalry stir. The empty tables, the curt refusal at the door. Hensley's hand seemed to linger. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated strike against the legacy Samuel had built, a tribute to his father, who'd cooked for neighbors, dreaming of a place where meals wove bonds. Samuel's fingers tightened around his glass, his resolve a quiet fire. He'd faced men like Hensley before, skeptics who saw his vision as a threat. Each slight had only sharpened his will. Coastal Haven was more than a business. It was a vow to his father, to Charleston, to create a space where all were welcome. Whoever was unraveling it would face a man who'd built an empire from nothing. Samuel took a slow sip, his instincts whispering of betrayal. The past had taught him to trust that inner voice, and tonight it urged him to dig deeper. The fight for Coastal Haven was reigniting, and he would meet it with the same unyielding spirit that had carried him through every challenge. He set his glass down, eyes steady, ready to unearth the truth, step by measured step. Samuel Carter moved quietly through the back corridors of Coastal Haven, the hum of the dining room fading behind him. The air grew warm as he entered the kitchen, where the sizzle of pans and the sharp scent of spices filled the space. Clara Evans, the head chef, stood at a counter, her hands steady, but her brow furrowed as she sorted through a crate of wilted vegetables. At 55, Clara was the heart of this kitchen, her recipes the soul of the restaurant Samuel had built. She looked up, her eyes meeting his with a mix of respect and frustration. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "I didn't expect you here tonight." Samuel nodded, keeping his voice low. "I'm just a customer tonight, Clara. But I need to know what's happening. These ingredients, they're not up to our standards." Clara sighed, pushing aside a limp head of lettuce. "They haven't been for weeks." The new manager, Wells, switched suppliers, said it was a budget cut, straight from the top. Samuel's eyes narrowed, but his face stayed calm. He'd never ordered any cuts. "Who's giving these orders, Clara?" "Not me." She hesitated, glancing at the bustling line cooks, then leaned closer. "Wells has been meeting with some investor types after hours. I overheard him say the restaurant's losing value, that it's ripe for a buyout. Doesn't add up." Samuel's mind raced. Someone was sabotaging Coastal Haven, undermining the dream he'd poured his life into, a place where his father's vision of shared meals and community lived on. Clara's loyalty, her quiet strength, reminded him of why he trusted his team. "Keep this between us," he told her. "Watch Wells. Note anything strange?" Clara nodded, her resolve mirroring his own. "This place means too much to let it fall apart," she said. Samuel gave her a small smile, but inside, a fire kindled. The restaurant was more than a business. It was a promise to his father, to Charleston. Whoever was behind this, Hensley or someone else, they'd underestimated him. Samuel stepped back into the shadows, his purpose clear. He'd uncover the truth, not with anger, but with the steady patience of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. The night deepened around Coastal Haven, the soft rhythm of Charleston's waves barely audible through the restaurant's walls. Samuel Carter stood in a dim hallway, his silhouette blending with the shadows as he processed the weight of Clara's words. The sabotage was real, deliberate, and closer than he'd feared. Footsteps echoed, quick and uneven, pulling him back to the moment. Eddie Thompson rounded the corner, his young face pale, eyes wide with urgency. "Mr. Carter," he whispered, voice trembling, "I heard something you need to know." Samuel motioned him closer, his calm demeanor a steady anchor. "Slow down, son." "What did you hear?" Eddie glanced back, ensuring they were alone, then spoke in a rush. "I was clearing tables near Wells' office. He was on the phone, didn't know I was there. He said, 'Hensley's pleased. Carter's close to breaking. He'll sell before summer if we keep the pressure on.' There's more. Wells mentioned fake invoices, inflated costs to make the restaurant look like it's failing." Samuel's heart steadied, but a cold resolve settled in his chest. Richard Hensley's name, that old wound, surfaced again, sharper now. The man who'd once mocked his dreams was orchestrating their ruin. Yet Samuel's face betrayed nothing, his voice even. "You're sure about this, Eddie?" The young waiter nodded, pulling a crumpled paper from his pocket, a photocopy of an invoice, numbers glaringly wrong. "I found this in the trash. It's not right, sir." Samuel took the paper, his fingers tracing the forged figures. Coastal Haven wasn't just a business. It was his father's legacy, a place where strangers became family over shared meals. Hensley's scheme wasn't just about money. It was personal, a vendetta to erase what Samuel had built. "Good work, Eddie," he said, his tone firm but warm. "Stay sharp, but stay safe. We're not done yet." Eddie's shoulders squared, a spark of pride in his eyes. Samuel tucked the invoice away, his mind already mapping the next steps. The truth was emerging, but the fight was far from over. Hensley had underestimated him, just as he had years ago. Samuel would play this game, not with rage, but with the quiet cunning of a man who'd turned dreams into reality against all odds. The air in Coastal Haven's staff room felt heavy, the hum of the restaurant muffled behind the closed door. Samuel Carter stood quietly, his presence unassuming yet commanding, as a group of servers gathered for a late-night meeting. The fluorescent light cast stark shadows, amplifying the tension. Tom, a gruff veteran waiter, crossed his arms, his voice sharp with suspicion. "You've been poking around, asking questions, stirring things up," he said, staring at Samuel. "Are you here to sabotage us? Make us lose our jobs?" The accusation hung like a storm cloud, and whispers rippled among the others. Samuel's chest tightened, but his face remained steady, his eyes meeting Tom's without flinching. "I'm here because I care about this place," he said, his voice calm but resonant. "I want Coastal Haven to thrive, not fall apart." A younger server shifted uncomfortably, unsure, while others nodded hesitantly. Clara Evans stepped forward, her presence grounding the room. "Tom, you're wrong," she said firmly. "I've known Mr. Carter longer than most. He's not the enemy." "He's trying to save us." Her words cut through the doubt, but Tom scoffed. "Save us? By sneaking around like some spy?" Samuel raised a hand, his gesture quieting the murmurs. "I've seen the bad ingredients, the empty tables, the fake invoices," he said. "Someone's hurting this restaurant, and it's not me. I'm asking for your trust, just for a little while." His tone carried the weight of a man who'd faced skepticism before, yet built a legacy despite it. The room softened, some faces relaxing, though Tom's scowl lingered. Samuel felt the sting of their doubt, a reminder of the battles he'd fought to earn respect in a world that often questioned him. Coastal Haven was his father's dream, a place where community trumped division, and he wouldn't let it crumble under mistrust. Clara's gaze met his, her nod a silent vow of loyalty. "We're watching, Carter," Tom muttered. but his tone wavered. Samuel offered a small smile, masking the resolve burning within. The truth was close, and he'd prove it, not with grand gestures, but with the quiet strength of a man who'd never backed down. He turned to leave, each step a quiet vow to prove the truth. The grand dining room of Coastal Haven glowed under the chandeliers, its polished tables reflecting the soft light as Charleston's elite gathered for a private investors' dinner. Samuel Carter stood at the edge of the room, his gray suit blending with the shadows, his presence unnoticed by the crowd. Richard Hensley held court at the center, his voice smooth and confident as he addressed the group. "Coastal Haven's value is plummeting," he declared, a glint of triumph in his eyes. "It's a prime opportunity for a buyout. I can make it yours for a fraction of its worth." The investors leaned in, intrigued, unaware of the storm brewing. Samuel stepped forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Is that so, Richard? Or are you the one driving this place into the ground?" The room fell silent, heads turning as Hensley's smile faltered. Samuel's gaze was steady, unyielding. "You've been sabotaging my restaurant. Fake invoices, bad suppliers, turning away guests." Clara Evans emerged from the kitchen, holding a stack of forged documents, her expression fierce. "These prove Wells was working for you," she said, placing them before the investors. Eddie Thompson, nervous but resolute, held up his phone, playing a recorded call where Wells promised Hensley results. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hensley's face reddened, his voice rising in desperation. "Carter stole this place from me. It was my family's legacy." Samuel shook his head, his tone calm but firm. "You lost it through your own greed, Richard. I built it back to honor my father, to serve this community." The investors exchanged uneasy glances, their trust in Hensley crumbling. Samuel's heart pounded, but his composure held. Coastal Haven wasn't just a business. It was a promise, a place where his father's dream of shared meals lived on. Hensley's scheme had nearly destroyed it, but the truth now stood bare. "You underestimated us," Samuel said, glancing at Clara and Eddie, their loyalty a quiet strength. The room buzzed as investors turned away from Hensley, some already reaching for their phones. Samuel stepped back, his work here done. The fight for Coastal Haven had reached its peak, and the man who'd built it from nothing had reclaimed it with the power of truth. The buzz of Coastal Haven's dining room softened as Samuel Carter guided Richard Hensley to a quiet corner where Charleston's waves whispered through an open window. The chandelier's glow cast long shadows, echoing their tangled past. Hensley sank into a chair, his proud facade shattered, eyes hollow with defeat. "You stole it all, Carter," he said, voice raw with bitterness. "This restaurant was my family's legacy. You took it when I was at my lowest." Samuel sat opposite, his face calm, etched with quiet strength. "You're wrong, Richard," he said evenly. "You lost it through your own choices, debts you piled, chances you squandered." Hensley's jaw clenched, but he stayed silent. Samuel leaned forward, his voice steady, carrying a lifetime of hard-won wisdom. "I bought Coastal Haven for my father, who fed neighbors, who saw meals as bonds, not trophies. You chased status. I chased a promise." Hensley's gaze dropped, hands shaking. "I wanted it back," he whispered. "I thought ruining it would let me reclaim my pride." Samuel's eyes softened, not with pity, but with truth. "Envy burns what it touches, Richard. You could have rebuilt, but you chose destruction." The words landed like stones, reflecting Hensley's regret. Samuel stood, his silhouette firm against the dim light. Coastal Haven was more than a business. It was his father's dream, a haven where community outshone division. He'd fought for it, not out of spite, but for Clara, Eddie, and every diner who found home at its tables. Hensley's scheme had crumbled, not under Samuel's wealth, but his unyielding resolve to guard what mattered. "You'll answer for this," Samuel said, his tone final, not cruel. "But this place will rise, stronger than you ever imagined." He turned, leaving Hensley to wrestle with his choices. The truth had prevailed, but Samuel knew the real task lay ahead: rebuilding trust, reviving the restaurant's soul. His father's legacy, rooted in love and shared meals, demanded nothing less. Each step he took echoed with purpose, a quiet vow to carry forward what he'd fought so hard to save. For Charleston, for the people who believed in Coastal Haven's heart, for the dream that would endure, unbroken, through every storm. The sun rose over Charleston, casting a golden glow across Coastal Haven's polished windows, where the scent of fresh herbs and warm bread now filled the air. Samuel Carter stood at the restaurant's entrance, his gray suit crisp, his eyes tracing the bustling dining room. Servers moved with purpose, their new uniforms gleaming under the chandeliers. Clara Evans, her chef's coat pristine, unveiled a new menu, her voice alive with pride as she described dishes inspired by her grandmother's recipes. Eddie Thompson darted between tables, his smile wide as he served families who filled every seat. The restaurant hummed with life, a stark contrast to the empty tables Samuel had seen weeks before. He walked through the kitchen, where fresh produce, vibrant greens, ripe tomatoes, lined the counters, a testament to restored standards. At the heart of the dining room, Samuel paused before a framed photograph he'd hung himself. His father, beaming in an old apron, stirring a pot in their childhood home. "This was his dream," Samuel said softly to Clara, who stood beside him. "A place where everyone felt welcome, where a meal was more than food. It was family." Clara nodded, her eyes misting. "We're making him proud, Mr. Carter." The words settled deep in Samuel's heart. Coastal Haven wasn't just his triumph. It was a victory for every server, every cook, every diner who believed in its spirit. The sabotage, the doubt, the accusations, they'd only strengthened his resolve. He'd fought not for glory, but for the community his father envisioned, a place where Charleston came together. Eddie approached, holding a guest book filled with glowing reviews. "They're calling us the heart of the city again," he said, his voice brimming with hope. Samuel smiled, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. The restaurant's revival was a beacon, proof that truth and loyalty could rebuild what envy sought to destroy. As diners laughed and clinked glasses, Samuel felt his father's presence in every corner. Coastal Haven was alive, its pulse strong, carrying forward a legacy of love and resilience. He stepped outside, the sea breeze cool against his face, knowing this was only the beginning. The restaurant would thrive, not just for him, but for everyone who called it home. Samuel Carter stood on the Charleston shore, the Atlantic's waves rolling gently under a fading sunset, their rhythm a quiet echo of the journey he'd endured. Coastal Haven glowed behind him, its windows warm with light, alive with the laughter of diners and the clink of glasses. Samuel's gaze softened, his gray suit catching the last rays of day. "Life has a way of testing us," he said, his voice steady, carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "Sometimes it shuts a door you built yourself, daring you to find the truth behind it." He paused, the sea breeze stirring his thoughts. "I learned that rejection isn't the end. It's a call to dig deeper, to fight for what matters." Coastal Haven's revival wasn't just his victory. It was a testament to Clara's loyalty, Eddie's courage, and the community that rallied around a shared dream. Samuel's father had taught him that a meal could mend hearts, that a table could bridge divides. That lesson guided him through the sabotage, the doubt, and the battle to reclaim his restaurant. "We all face moments when trust is fragile," he continued, "but holding fast to what's right, even alone, builds something lasting." The restaurant stood as proof, a place where Charleston's heart beat stronger than ever. Samuel turned, his silhouette framed against the sea, his words a quiet challenge. "What doors have been closed on you? What truth are you fighting for?" He smiled faintly, knowing the answers lay in each person's story. "Share your thoughts below," he said, his tone warm. "Tell us about a time you faced rejection and kept going. Your story might inspire someone else." Coastal Haven's light spilled onto the street, a beacon of resilience. If this tale moved you, hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to Black Echoes for more stories of grit and grace. Samuel walked toward the restaurant, its glow pulling him back. The fight for truth had forged something unbreakable, a legacy not just for him, but for all who believed in second chances. As the waves whispered, he knew this was no end, but a beginning, a call to keep building, keep dreaming, keep fighting for what makes us whole.